Ever wonder why punctuation marks are so important? Well, they make your writing clear, professional, and easy to read and understand. Plus, they can save you from a lot of embarrassing misunderstandings, just like this one. Hi, my name is Rahil Zafar. I'm an English language teacher, and in this video, we'll be covering everything from periods to semicolons with a dash of humor to keep things fun. So grab your pencil and a paper because this is going to be a super detailed video along with some interesting exercises. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 12 common punctuation marks and their usage. And before we get started, please hit that subscribe button and press the bell icon so that you get notified as soon as I upload a new lesson. Let's dive into it. So first of all, let's understand what is punctuation. So punctuation marks are the set of marks or symbols that are used in writing to separate sentences and their elements, making the meaning clear. Now, these punctuation marks are a part of almost all the languages that are either written or spoken across the globe. For example, in Hindi language, we have punctuation marks like prashna chin, viraham chin, etc. Similarly, in English language, we have periods, commas, question marks, colons, semicolons, etc. And each and every punctuation mark serves a specific purpose. And that's what we're going to understand today. So let's begin with period or full stop. So this symbol is called a period in American English, whereas in the British English, we call it a full stop. So this symbol is used at the end of a statement or an independent clause. Let's look at the first example. I learned how to use a period in a sentence. Then there's a period. Now this type of sentence is called a declarative sentence. That means it is declaring something. It is giving us some information. And what's that information? That I learned how to use a full stop in a sentence. Let's take another example. I have the best brother in the world. Now this is again a declarative sentence. Let's look at another example. Please switch off the lights. There's a full stop again. This is a complete sentence, but this is an imperative sentence. Now, what are these imperative sentences? When you make commands or requests, you basically use imperative sentences. Let's look at another example. Let me know if you need any help. So, we use a period or a full stop to end a declarative or an imperative sentence. Please remember this. The next punctuation mark is my favorite, the exclamation point. So, an exclamation point is used to show excitement or to convey strong emotions such as happy or surprised or angry. You get it, right? Let me give you some examples. So, imagine that you're going to London for the first time and you want to tell this to your best friend. But your best friend is not with you. So you're probably going to text message him or her, right? Now, if you write this message with a full stop at the end, this is how it's going to sound. I'm super excited to go to London. Now your best friend is going to think that's not a big deal for you. I mean, it sounds like you keep going to London every month. But if you want to make it a big deal, you need to use that exclamation point over there. This is how it's going to sound with an exclamation point at the end of the sentence. I'm super excited to go to London. I hope you get it. Let's look at some more examples. Now, this was an example of a declarative sentence. You can also use exclamation points after imperative sentences. Let me show you how. Alright, so this is the sentence. John, don't annoy your sister. Now imagine John's mother telling this to him angrily, which means you can use exclamation points after imperative sentences as well. Let's take a look at some other examples now. Now you can use these exclamation points after interjections. So what are these interjections? These are basically words that are used to express feelings. For example, wow or ouch, right? Let's read these examples. Wow, that's an amazing car. Or ouch, that bee stung me. So, to express these feelings, you can use interjections along with the exclamation points. Alright, let's move to the next punctuation mark, which is the question mark. Here you go. So the question mark is used to mark the end of a question. And the rule is pretty simple and straightforward. If a sentence is a question, you use a question mark to end it. Here are some examples for you. Are you coming to John's party? Do your parents live in London? Is that your car? And did you subscribe to my channel? If not, please hit that subscribe button and press the bell icon because I come up with some amazing lessons every week. Let me tell you something interesting about these 3 punctuation marks that we just learned. So, all these punctuation marks, your period or full stop, your exclamation point and question mark are called terminal punctuation marks because they're used to end sentences. Before we move on to the next punctuation mark, I want you to pause this video and complete this exercise by adding periods, exclamation marks and question marks. Okay, let's check your answers now. Here you go. He's playing football. There's a full stop over here. Where is he going? Question mark. What an amazing story! Exclamation point. I'm going to John's party. Full stop. Do you want to join? Question mark. Ouch! My knee hurts! Exclamation points. Let's move on to the next punctuation mark. So the next set of punctuation marks fall under the category of pauses. They tell the reader to stop for a moment and then continue reading. Now, there are 3 punctuation marks that fall under this category, and they are comma, semicolon, and colon. So let's first quickly understand why and where do we use a comma. Now, a comma is used to separate phrases or items in a list. Let's take a look at the first example. I need to buy an apple, an orange, and a banana. Notice how I took a pause after each item. So, anyone who's going to read this sentence will take a short pause after each item. Now, if you remember, we were told earlier that we should not use a comma before and. Now, it totally depends on you. If you want to use a comma, you can use it. It's not wrong. But yes, remember this thing as well. If there are only 2 items in a list, you do not use a comma there. For example, I need to buy an apple and an orange. Here you're not going to use a comma. Let's take a look at some more examples. So a comma is also used to separate words that are not part of the sentence. For example, unfortunately, she missed her flight. Or, honestly, I didn't mean to hurt her feelings. Now notice one thing over here. She missed her flight. That's a complete sentence in itself. And this word, unfortunately, is the writer's opinion. Similarly, in the next sentence, if you notice, honestly is the writer's opinion. I didn't mean to hurt her feelings. That's a complete sentence. So, you can use a comma to separate words that are not part of the sentence. Let's look at some more examples now. So, you can use a comma after names or when you're addressing someone specifically. For example, Rahil, can you help me with this? Or, ma'am, can I get you something? Notice in a restaurant, when a waiter comes to you and asks for your order, sir, can I take your order please? So that pause after sir is what a comma does. Let's look at some more examples. So a comma is also used to separate linking words. What are these linking words? So linking words are basically words that help you connect one sentence to another. For example is an example. Moreover, furthermore, however, in fact, of course, or on the one hand, on the other hand, these are some examples of linking words. Now, when you use these words, it's important to use a comma. Let's take an example. My parents wanted me to become a doctor. However, I had other plans. Another example. Titanic is a great movie. In fact, it is one of the best I've ever watched. Now, you can always change the position of these linking words. They can also occur in the middle of a sentence or at the end of a sentence. If these linking words occur in the middle of a sentence, then you will have to use 2 commas. Let me show you how. Here. Titanic is a great movie. It is, in fact, one of the best I've ever watched. So it does not matter where these linking words appear in the sentence. The meaning remains the same. And the final usage of a comma is with clauses. So there are two types of clauses, dependent clause and independent clause. Now a dependent clause depends on another sentence or another clause to complete its meaning. Let me give you an example. When Rahil gets home early, he does the household chores. Now notice in this sentence, there are two clauses. One is a dependent clause, this one, when Rahil gets home early. Now when I say this to you, you're probably going to think, okay, what does he do when he gets home early, right? So this sentence needs another sentence to complete its meaning, which is, he does the household chores. Now if I say this to you without using the dependent clause before it, you will be able to understand what I'm trying to say. He does the household chores. That means he's involved in doing some kind of activity, right? But that's not the case with when Rahil gets home early. That sentence needs another sentence to complete its meaning. Now, if you want to understand the difference between dependent clause and independent clause, I've made a detailed video on the different types of sentence structures: simple, compound, and complex sentences. I'm going to drop in the link over here. You can watch it later. Right, so we use a comma after a dependent clause always. Let's move to the next punctuation mark now. So the next punctuation mark is the semicolon. So a semicolon is used to join two independent clauses or complete sentences that are closely related to each other. Let me give you an example. Melissa went to the library to study. It was the only place quiet enough for her to focus. Now these two sentences are closely related and they are independent clauses. That means they're complete in themselves. Now the only rule you need to remember with the semicolon is that when you write the second independent clause, you should begin it with a lowercase letter. Over here, the word it starts with a small letter I. Let me give you some more examples. Now you remember these two examples from the previous slide. This is another way of writing these sentences. My parents wanted me to become a doctor, semicolon, however, I had other plans. Notice the H is small. So we always use a small letter or a lowercase letter to begin another sentence. Similarly, Titanic is a great movie. In fact, it is one of the best I've ever watched. So, semicolon is more like using a period. But the next sentence that you start, it starts with a lowercase letter. Always remember that. Let's move to the next one. Let's talk about a colon now. So a colon is used to introduce information after an independent clause. But there's an exception. And that exception is that you can use this colon even after titles or headings, just to save space. For example, here, you look at this, I've used a colon after example. That is just one exception. And the information that is introduced after a colon can either be a list of items or it could be another clause. Let me give you some examples now. Frank was going to buy 3 things: a lamp, a couch, and a book. So there's a colon before the list of items. Let's have a look at another example. The IELTS test has 4 modules: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Now this is how you're going to use a colon. Always remember that it is used only after an independent clause. That means a complete sentence. Let's move to the next one now. Okay, so before we move to the next one, I've got an exercise for you. I want you to pause this video and complete this exercise, and then we're going to check your answers. Alright, let's check your answers now. Before we leave, make sure you have your keys, wallet, and phone. Now, if you want, you can place a comma even here. But as I mentioned earlier, it's up to you. If you want to place a comma, you can. If you don't want to, you can skip it. All right, next one. She loves to read books. Semicolon. Her brother prefers watching movies. Full stop. For the camping trip, we need the following items: colon, a tent, a flashlight, and a water bottle. That's a list that is being introduced. So you're going to use a colon after that. Let us now understand the usage of apostrophe. So an apostrophe is used for two main purposes. Number one, to mark contractions. Now what are these contractions? So a contraction is when you join two words together to make it into a single word. For example, he plus is becomes he's. He's waiting for you. I plus am becomes I'm. I'm a teacher. Do plus not becomes don't. Don't do that. Right? Now there are many contractions, and you need to remember that an apostrophe is used to indicate that some letters have been omitted from that word. So please use it correctly. And the second purpose is to mark possessions. So possession basically means ownership. Something belongs to someone. Let me give you an example first of all. Don't forget to subscribe to Rahil's YouTube channel. Now, we've got a contraction over here. Do plus not becomes don't. That's why we used an apostrophe over here. But in the second case, here, Rahil's YouTube channel. Whose channel is it? This is my YouTube channel. So, when I say Rahil's car or John's car, you need to remember this thing that we're talking about possession. So, you're going to use an apostrophe even there. Let's look at another example. John's new car is very fast. Whose car are we talking about? We're talking about John's new car here. So we need to put an apostrophe when talking about someone's possession. Now these are the two main purposes when we use an apostrophe. I hope that's clear. Next in the list we have parentheses. Now some people call it round brackets, some call it parentheses. Remember the correct pronunciation, it is parentheses. Now why do we use these round brackets or parentheses? So they're used to provide extra information in a sentence that's not essential, but it provides more clarity or more context. Let me give you some examples. Look at the first one. We visited Paris, the capital of France. Now, most of the people would know that it is the capital of France, but just to make sure, we gave this extra piece of information using parentheses. Now, there's another usage as well. You can use it for acronyms as well. For example, the International English Language Testing System, IELTS, is the world's most popular English language test. I hope it's clear. Let's move to the next one now. Let's talk about a hyphen. So a hyphen is that short line that you see between two words or three words. So hyphens are always used to connect two separate word elements to form a compound word. And these word elements include prefixes, suffixes, sometimes single letters, and even numbers. Let me give you an example. Here, T-shirt, single letter. Mid-1980s, number. We have a hyphen over here and here. Let me give you some more examples. She is my mother-in-law. It's a well-known fact. So a hyphen is used to connect words or parts of words. Remember this thing. I was thinking we could go to the park right now, but never mind. Let's move to the next punctuation mark. So this punctuation mark is called ellipses. Now ellipses are a series of three dots put together, and they're used to indicate a pause or trailing off of a thought. So it is used basically to indicate that a writer has trailed off of a thought, leaving a thought unfinished. Here are some examples. I was thinking, maybe we should leave now. Or, weeks later, I finally found my missing shoe. That's how you can use ellipses. Do you see these cute little creatures over here? They're called quotation marks. So quotation marks are used to quote the exact words of the speaker in a sentence, and also to indicate names, titles, or to highlight specific words or phrases. Let me give you some examples. I'm excited to go to the zoo this weekend, exclaimed my sister. Now these are my sister's exact words. The next one's my favorite from Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee once said, knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. So this is how you're going to use quotation marks. And finally, let's talk about the last punctuation mark of this video, the slash. But before we do that, if you want this amazing presentation, comment presentation in the comment box below and I'll get in touch with you soon. So, a slash is used to indicate alternatives. That means to show you choices or give you options. And it is also used to separate parts of a date, or the numerator and the denominator in fractions. In fractions, not factions, sorry. Right, so let me give you some examples of how to use a slash. Here you go. The homework is due Monday/Tuesday. Please select your size, small, medium, or large. And that's how you write dates as well. Alright, I hope you've understood how to use these 12 punctuation marks. In case you want to revisit this lesson, please don't hesitate. And please subscribe to my channel because I keep coming up with amazing and interesting video lessons every week. That's all for today. I'm going to see you in the next video lesson. Till then, keep smiling and keep learning. Bye-bye.